Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson and in this video we are going to be continuing our look through of the Dark Souls 2 official artworks. So that's basically all there is for the intro, so let us continue where we left off. We covered a good amount of pages in the last one. We're about a third at least, or a half at most, so we made really good progress. So this is where we left off, enemy design illustrations. It says, here we present illustrations of the ordinary enemies that wander the land, as well as the more event-related roaming souls and black phantoms. The increased number of areas composed of our last game also means increased enemy variety. Make sure to take note that some of the interesting designs that didn't actually make it into the game. So yeah, that's cool that we'll see some concept art. One thing that Dark Souls 2 did, and I'm assuming they did this to try and make it easier, but I personally don't like it at all, because especially if you're trying to farm for a certain drop, if you kill an enemy too many times, that enemy will stop respawning. So if you are trying to farm for a specific helmet or a sword or a shield or something, and you kill all of the enemies that are in an area that can drop it, if you kill them too many times, you're essentially screwed. So anyway, let's get right into it, shall we? So here we have a falconer, as you can see. The man has a falcon that follows him. He has this like long feather on the top of his head. It looks like he has some feathers on his on his armor as well. But that's really about it. This is the ogre. This is one of the first early game mini bosses that you can encounter. They are not bosses, but they are mini bosses in the sense that they are extremely difficult to take down in the beginning of the game, and they are littered throughout the beginning of the game. Right in things betwixt, there is actually one that you can defeat, and if you can defeat him, you get an extremely powerful ring. Now keep in mind, this is before you have created your character, so you have no stats, you are level 0, and you are using your fists. But if you can take him down, you get an incredible ring, and I cannot think of the name of the ring for the life of me. So again, these ogres used to be men and women, thanks to Aldia and his experiments. And here we have a kobold. So this looks like a kind of, I don't even know what this is, like a type of cat. It looks like a mixture between a cat and a basilisk to me, but I don't know. If it looks like a cat, it has my seal of approval. I would 100% pet it. Next up, we have the hollow infantry, which are just your standard soldier type enemies. They're not super strong, fairly easy to take down, fairly easy to parry. However, they attack in very large numbers sometimes, not always. 1-on-1, they're easy to take down. 2-on-1, they're easy to take down. 5-on-1, and you are in some trouble. The next up is the Hide Knight. Now, in Scholar of the First Sin, I can't remember how it is in the original Dark Souls 2. These enemies are passive until you hit them. Once you hit them, they are relentless, and even after you die, they will still come at you on sight. So you have to be careful with these guys. It's a case of, do I want to fight them to try and get a chance at their gear, or am I just gonna wait and kind of risk it and then maybe come back later? The High Knights are my favorite armor set in all of Dark Souls. They are so cool with these white robes with loads of arrows sticking out of them. They just look so badass, and I wish that this armor set returned in Dark Souls 3, but unfortunately it did not. So, next up we have multiple different types of enemies. So first of all we have the standard Hollow Soldier. We find these enemies basically across almost nearly all of the locations. They are a bit stronger than the standard Hollow, since they are like a Hollow Knight, Hollow Soldier. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of their armor, but their helmets do look very cool. The next up is the Royal Soldier. Next up is the Ironclad Soldier. So these guys are absolutely huge and covered in armor. They are absolute huge brutes. They are massive and have tons of health. They are absolute damage sponges, and they have very brutal weapons like clubs and big maces with spikes in them. Here is just some different pictures of one of the enemy types called the Flame Salamander. We can find these guys throughout multiple areas. We can actually find them in a secret location in Forest of Forest Giants, but I would recommend coming back to them later. There are some excellent goodies behind these guys, but between the fire on the ground and them attacking you, it can lead to your death quite quickly. Next up we have the Old Knight. So this is him here. So like it says, he does look very old. His tunic and his armor look old. However, his sword kind of looks rusted too. So next up we have the the Yarangian Sailor. So this is him here. He has a very bright bit of livery on him in his gold. He has a very small shield, very nice sword, but it's not in the best condition. Definitely looks more like a sailor that has metal armor on than an actual knight. And the other guy here is the Old Knight. So these guys here are massive enemies. These are the enemies found in Hade's Tower of Flame. They take up they absorb so much damage, and one hit from them will almost kill you, especially early on in the game. So dealing with these guys isn't much a case of having to take it slow and steady. You just have to chip away at them. But their potential loot is very good and very well worth it. So next we have the Dark Stalker. So these are some of the creatures that we encounter inside of No Man's Wharf. They are terrified of light, so having a torch in this area is essential because it essentially keeps these guys at bay and they will not attack. But the second that torch goes out, they go into a frenzy to kill you. Next up is the Roaming Soul. So this is him here. He has some of the best looking armor in Dark Souls 2. I absolutely adore his armor, especially his helmet and his and his shoulder pieces with all of these spikes and everything. One of my favorite sets in the game. But yeah, I'm not actually sure if you can unlock this set in the game, while I was waiting on part 1 to render, I actually started up a new game of Dark Souls 2 because I have not played it in a while, and reading this book really made me want to go and replay it, so I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Next up is the Undead Jailer. So these guys send Hollows, another undead, to the Bastion. As you can see, they have these massive weapons. They have like chains that it says jingle jingle. So these guys are essentially slavers and slave catchers. So it's kind of awful how much King Vendrick has persecuted the undead. Next up is the Undead Citizen. So this is just a normal citizen or civilian who has become undead. Nothing really too special. I'm pretty sure these guys blow up, like they'll run at you and jump at you and blow up, which is really annoying. Whereas these guys are just normal. Next up, we have the Royal Swordsman. So we find these guys in a couple of places. We find them in the Lasbasti. We find them in the Forest of the Fallen Giants. There's a couple of other places that we find them at. I can't remember, but I really like these guys. They are tough. They bring a lot of different weapons to the table, and their armor looks super cool. It's not the best, but it does look quite cool. This guy's sword is really cool with like this kind of zigzag curly pattern. I just really like that, and I especially like his helmet even more. So this is the enhanced undead. So this is obviously an undead. And yeah, I actually can't even tell what this is supposed to be. It just looks like some kind of creature. If anyone can figure out what this is, please let me know. I cannot tell. Maybe it's just because I'm so tired. Just for context, it is currently 1 a.m. here, and I have not slept since 1 a.m. yesterday, so I'm almost being awake for 24 hours. So if I sound like I'm reading too slow or making a bit of mistakes, I'll just go ahead and stop and record more tomorrow. So next up we have the Great Moth, which is this guy here. I actually can't remember fighting him in the game. However, I do know that there is an item that people can wear that have moth wings on their back, and it gives 0 protection at all, but it actually gives you a bunch of like very small little benefits, which I think is really, really cool. So next we have a rogue. This guy is just your common thief bandit enemy type. Nothing really special here. This one here is the Necromancer. Sorry, I cannot see that. So this woman revives the dead, brings skeletons back to life to fight for her. She can be a pain to deal with based on the skeletons in case you allow her to summon too many. But if you get close to her, she goes down so fast. So it's the best strat is just to rush her. Next up is the Artificial Undead, which are these guys. We encounter these guys in the Undead Cops, and I'm not sure why they are called Artificial Undead. Maybe they're just pretending to be undead. But their weapons are so cruel looking. They're like these massive, they're not even falchions or curved blades. They're like these massive round weapons with spikes and everything coming through them. That combined with how they look, especially here, make them look absolutely like bone chilling cold level of terrifying. Next up, we have a simple torturer. So here is him with some of his torturing tools. He has this to go around the captive's neck, as well as a whip. I always kill these guys just because I don't like them. I don't like the idea of letting torturers go. This is the Undead Street Worker. So I'm assuming these guys are also hollows, or not hollows per se, but marked by the undead, but they just seem to be working a normal job trying to make a living, which I can respect. So here we have a really cool picture of a small NPC right in the back of a very large NPC. I can't remember what these guys are called, but yeah, it looks so cool. So, oh sorry, so this is the Mounted Overseer. It says it right here, I couldn't believe that. So this is the Mounted Overseer. So this guy up here is obviously the Overseer, and he's mounted on this creature. I'm not sure what it is, if it's a monster or a man, but it is most certainly not just a standard animal. Then we have the Grave Warden, which are these guys. They carry this massive kind of curved blade. Really cool design. They look very dour and drear, which I think goes well. And then next up we have the Mannequin. These are one of my favorite enemies in the game. So they are very slender enemies. They have like things like throwing knives and daggers and rapiers, and they all have this little white face mask. These are one of the enemies that were featured in the trailer for Dark Souls 2, or at least one of them anyway. If you have not seen that trailer, I would really recommend it. It's so good. Next up, we have the Desert Sorceress, aka everyone's or every male player's favorite sorceress. So we find her in the Earthen Peak, and she is a pyromancer. She reminds me a lot of Melisandre from A Song of Ice and Fire. But yeah, it's really cool. I like this pose here of her kind of lounging in the throne. I just think that goes to show how powerful they are. Next up, we have the Poison Horn Beetle. Poison Horn Beetle. And that's this guy here. So not much to say about him. I'm pretty sure he shoots out spikes if you get too close and stay too close for too long. Otherwise, he just kind of slowly crawls along and minds his own business, which I respect that. So next up, we have the Alon Knight. So these knights were trained by Sir Alon. He was essentially the sword master of the Old Iron King. He was a wandering samurai who kind of found a home in the Old Iron Keep's court and trained all of his men. He is so skilled. I'll talk about him after we get through these. Next up, we have the Alon Knight Captain, so this would be him here. And then we have the Roaming Soul, with, in brackets, Mad Warrior. So, Roaming Soul, Mad Warrior, which are these guys here. So, anyway, back to the Alon Knights. So, it is said that after a while, Sir Alon left the court of the Iron King and kind of just went on more adventures. However, due to a flashback, we are able to enter that situation and discover that no, he did not run away. He was defeated, and he was defeated by us. So we are the ones who put an end to him, and he is, in my opinion, one of the hardest fights in the game. What is really cool, and this is just a little bit of trivia, is I'm pretty sure he's from somewhere from the east, so he has like very samurai-esque morals. But if you manage to defeat him without taking a hit, he commits seppuku, whereas if you defeat him with taking damage, he just dies normally. But if you hit the landing shot and you have not taken any damage, he flips his sword around, shoves it into his belly, and kind of keels over, which is really cool. Just goes to show that he's not just kind of like faking, oh, I want to be a tough samurai, that he genuinely believes it. So here we have, this is just a type of goblin here. Nothing really special about them. Here is what is called the Lion Clan Warrior. So these guys are almost, I'm not sure how I would describe them. They're like half lion, half human hybrids. They're very, they look like lions more than they look like humans. They essentially look like bipedal lions. They're big, they're bulky, they're hairy, they have massive teeth. And yeah, we don't end up working with them. We end up essentially killing them because they are hostile towards us. So next is the Primal Knight, which are these guys here. These can be found in the Doors of Pharos, and a few of them, not many, but a few can be found at the start of entering Drangleic Castle. These guys appear to be some kind of elephant-type creatures. They have, or maybe mammoths. They have tusks, and they have huge trunks, as well as the feet of elephants do. They carry these massive halberds, which are like, the blade itself is like the size of the arm of the player character, which I find so funny. However, the armor is incredible. It's all gilded gold and just looks so cool. So next up we have one of the Dwarven enemies. So this is the Gurm Warrior, as well as the Undead Peasant. I'm not sure which is actually which here. I believe, this is the Undead Peasant. And then this is the Fanged Beast, which is a boar. These guys have massive axes. They look very much like dwarves, and they have access to a lot of poison abilities. There is even a NPC that we can find that deals in or sells purely poison-based items. Moving forward, we have the parrot-sized undead. We find these guys in one of the later game Sandy locations, where we can eventually have Pate and Katon fight. These guys are terrifying. So they're essentially undead that have been corrupted by parasites. They almost have these spider-like appendages coming out of them. And there's loads of spiders in this area too. This is the parasite spider, so I'm assuming this is what has infected these undead. Then we have the Duke's Sildora. I'm not really sure what a Sildora is, however he does look kind of like a nobleman, and he does have a dagger. And then we just have the hunting dog here, so I'm assuming these are used for hunting the undead. So next we have the Coal Tar enemy. These guys can be found in the Black Gulch, which is a poison-ridden area. They have this insane grab attack that can poison you and almost one-hit kill you. And I believe they spew poison, if I remember correctly. Here is an enemy. It's not really an enemy per se, but it is a serpent that comes out of a tunnel that blocks your path that you either have to time to run past, or he will knock you off, and it can be very bad if he pops out while there's a bunch of enemies behind you if you are running past this area. Here is one of the Royal Guards. We come across these guys throughout the game quite a lot. They are very cool. They have this really ornate golden style armor with this really cool halberd. You have the spear on top with a straight dagger on the left side, and then kind of a curved blade on the right, so it's a really cool weapon. And then here's them on the back with no cape and a cape. I really like these guys in the game. Next we have, the Stone Soldier, which sometimes come alive. I believe these guys are found in Lothric Castle. Not all of them do, but some of them do, so it just makes you kind of stay on your guard. They are quite beefy and have a big health pool. And also, so does the Stone Knight. These guys are even tankier, and they have this really cool twin blade. Twin blades are one of the best additions to Dark Souls 2, and I'm so glad that they finally brought them back in Elden Ring. Then next, we have the Amana Shrine Maiden. So these are one of the enemies in the Shrine of Amana. Shrine of Amana is one of the best areas in Dark Souls 2. It's so much fun. And yeah, this is just one of the Shrine Maidens that we come across that shoot spells at you. Next, we have the Lizard Man. I believe these can be found also in the Shrine of Amana, but honestly, compared to the other enemies in Shrine of Amana, I cannot quite remember for sure. And then here we have the Lindheld Cleric, which are the other type of enemy in Shrine of Amana. These guys are the most notorious enemy for that area. They spam spells at you in great numbers, not great numbers of spells, even though they do that too because they fire them preposterously fast, but there's so many of them at the same time. But they also have this really cool weapon, which is like this warhammer with a massive spike on the back. And as much as I dislike this enemy, their design goes extremely hard, so it's so cool. Then next we have the Lady Witch, which we find at the end of Shrine of Amana, I believe. Then the Lady Pyromancer, so this is him here, and this is the Witch. So the Pyromancer, what I think is cool about him is that he actually does have a sword. He doesn't just rely on magic, and his robes are quite cool. Then we have one of the Wall Warriors. So these are essentially ghost type enemies that can hit you. I believe these are also located in Lothric Castle. And then here we have the Imperious Knight. So these guys are extremely tanky, very heavy duty armor. They also have this really heavy duty shield that they can use, which is quite cool. One of my favorite enemies. I know Dark Souls 2 gets a lot of flack for having a lot of enemies that are essentially just men in armor, but the different types of armor and armor styles in the game is so cool and really does make up for it. So here we have the Black Dragon set. So this is Dark Souls 2's dragon form. And like I said, it's my favorite dragon form of all time. It looks so cool to me. It's not exactly as if you are 100% a dragon, but you are wearing dragon armor that is so cool for any kind of fashion. The only downside is that you can't take pieces of it off. Like you can't take, say, the helmet off and put a different helmet on. You have to commit to the whole armor. And I don't think you actually get any armor benefits in this stage. But you do get the dragon benefits. And then down here we have two different types of giant. Okay, next up is a new section. So, characters, non-playable character design illustrations. So this is for essentially friendly NPCs, I'm assuming. These characters help the player on his or her lonely journey and are often sources of valuable information. Many of them have had the designs, locations, and equipment altered for the actual game. As in the main preceding section, each NPC's particular equipment is also included alongside him or her. So, let us get started. So here we have the firekeeper, the elderly firekeeper, or at least one of them that we find at the very start of the game in the house in Things Betwixt. This is Milibeth. It appears that she is working with the old firekeepers kind of as their caretakers. I'm not sure if if she is a firekeeper in training, or whether or not she's essentially just like a live-at-home nurse for helping these old women. I'm not quite sure. Next up, we have the Emerald Herald. So the Emerald Herald is probably the most important NPC in Dark Souls 2. She is our level up maiden for this game. Every From Software game has a level up maiden, and in this one it is the Emerald Herald. So she is actually one of my favorite level up maidens. It's really easy to skip some of her dialogue and just go straight to level up, but she also does provide occasional good tidbits of information. When you reach the dragon, I don't even know what the area is called, the castle in the sky with all the dragons, you actually find her there, because she herself is part dragon, which is really, really cool. A lot of people don't like her. I do not understand why. I think she is absolutely lovely. She's helpful, she's polite, and yeah. And like I said, she is definitely one of my favorite level up maidens. She's also probably one of my... Actually, no, sorry, not one of my... Probably my favorite, my Soulsborne series waifu. And you know what? I'm not even embarrassed about saying that. It is 4 a.m. and I am too tired. Next up, we have Sweet Shalkur. I'm sure I mispronounced that. But she is a cat that we find in Majula, who helps us out. The cat can talk, by the way. So she gives us, she sells us a bunch of stuff like rings and small bits like that. But yeah. Also, here's the question for this video. Who is your favorite level up maiden and why? Like I said, mine is the Emerald Herald. Not just because I think she's a good waifu, but because she's really helpful in the game, and her kind of background about being half human, half dragon, and kind of not being accepted by either group is really sad and really interesting. So I like when kind of level up characters actually have stories behind them, rather than just them being there. So next up we have Berard of Jugo. So Berard is a warrior who is going on an adventure, and he has the Moonlight Greatsword. We find him close to death. He's been badly wounded, and we tell him to head back to Majula. And he's like, "Hey, I see you're iron my sword, you know, keep your hands off. This has been in my family for generations." But this sword is not what it appears to be. It is a fake Moonlight Greatsword. So it's unclear at the start whether he knows that it is a fake or not. But yeah, eventually he does figure it out and tells you that it is fake. But it is possible to get the real Moonlight Greatsword in this game. It would not be a FromSoft game if you could not get the Moonlight Greatsword. Next up, we have Rosabeth of Meilie. She is someone who is blocking our critical path. However, she has been petrified. We have to use I can't remember the exact item type, but one of the items that unpetrifies stone. And she comes out of it and falls down and is like beside herself, thanking us. And we tell her to head back to town and we will talk to her there. When we talk to her again, she essentially offers to act as a vendor for the player, so I'm selling all kinds of things, from weapons to armor to healing things to much more. So really, really cool. Next up is another merchant NPC, and that is Merchant Hag Malentia. So we find her when we are exploring the Forest of the Fallen Giants. She is this kind of withered old crone. You can see by like her hands and everything. However, she is very unfriendly, is not the most polite woman, but she has very good wares, so you are able to tell her to go back to Majula. One thing I do like about this game is kind of how over the course of the game, Majula goes from this kind of small abandoned town with like 3 people in it to a semi-functioning town with like a good 7 to 9 people. So that's just something I like. Next up, we have Kale the Cartographer. So we find him after we proceed through the door that our petrified friend was just blocking. And once we go through there, if we head to the right and stick to the wall and enter a cave, we come across a man who is working on some kind of map. It's not sure what he's using to make the map or how he's making it, but he's making it. So again, we can tell him to go back to the camp. However, he does in fact refuse. He's like, no, I need to stay here and finish making my map. So he's dedicated at least. Next up, we have Lisa of Landelt. So we find her in Hyde's Tower at the beginning. Near the beginning of the game. She is, after we defeat the Dragon Rider, she is up top praying, and she is one of the funniest characters in the game. She teaches us miracles, and she's like, you know what? There is a blocked door that we passed on our way to get to Hyde's Tower Flame. Meet me there, and using the power of the miracles, I will open it. I will use God's divine judgment on us. And we're like, yeah, okay. So our character goes back and meets her there, and it's so funny. She's like, stand back while I cast this spell. And we stand back, and instead of casting a spell, she just hits the switch and opens the door and is like, there, behold the miraculous power of God. And it's so funny to me that she essentially just hit a switch. And I can't tell if she actually believes that that's God or if she is just messing around. I don't know which is funnier, but either way, it's brilliant. I love her so much. Okay, next up. So this is Blue Sentinel Targon. So he's the first member of the Blue Sentinels that we meet. They act as kind of a good covenant. They are summoned in if someone is being invaded and help. So they are essentially the White Knights of the Dark Souls 2 multiplayer scene. However, he is an absolute prick to us. He's like, do not even look at me, you filthy wretch. But yeah, eventually we can join his order and he accepts us basically because he has to. But yeah, pretty cool. Next up, we have Luca Te of Meilie. So Luca Te is one of the most fleshed out characters in the game. She has one of the best stories in the game. So Luca Te is a woman, and she has come to this land in search of her brother. and she is more than capable. She is extremely skilled with a weapon. However, if we progress her quest long enough, we eventually find her to be mortally wounded right outside Aldia's keep. I'm assuming one of the monsters got free and mauled her. And she's like, I know my brother's in there. I feel it, and I know he's not dead. You have to go in and find him. And we're like, okay, we will do this for you. And then she dies, like she passes away literally right after she says that. And then we enter the mansion where where her brother is meant to be. And literally 5 steps after we enter it, her brother shows up as a red phantom. So she came all this way, fought so hard, went through hell to find her brother, and died literally like 10 feet away from him. So that's so sad to me. She has this cool kind of mask on. It's like a man with a thin face and a mustache and like a very long, thin beard. And yeah, she's definitely my favorite NPC in the game, or at least one of them. Next up, we have Steady Hands Macduff. So Macduff is the one of the blacksmiths. So the main blacksmith, I can't remember his name right now, but he is located in Majula. We just have to find his key. However, Macduff is a blacksmith located in Lasbasti, and he is totally missable because he is a secret. You have to let one of the enemies roll a boulder towards you. You have to let it miss you and hit the wall behind you to crack it open. And then in that crack in the hole, you walk in the wall and he is there hammering and is willing to offer his services to you. What he can do that the blacksmith in in Majula can't do is he can imbue them with elements. So he can make he can make your longsword into a fire longsword or into a lightning longsword. Really cool. I personally don't use them just because I don't like those status effects on my weapons. But if you were into that, then absolutely must use this guy. So next is Strayed of Olafis, and I'll be honest, he looks like a sorcerer, but I have no idea who this man is. I have never seen him before in my life. So I don't have anything to say about him, just because I literally have no idea who that guy is. Maybe he's someone a bit more hidden, similar to how Macduff is hidden, but yeah, I never came across him in any of my playthroughs. Next up, we have the Alkan Bellkeeper / the Ven Bellkeeper. So this is one of the guys in the what's it called, Lasbasti, who is one of the keepers of the bells. He's very short. However, he has a nice helmet and a full-size bow and a shield. So a lot of people might see his size and think he's a joke, but he hits very, very hard. Next up, we have Falcon the Outcast. So again, I'm not super familiar with Falcon. However, he looks to be some kind of sorcerer. Very cool design with the shield, the rapier, and the staff. I'm always a sucker for mages that have both a sword and a staff in each hand. Oh, sorry, a sword in one hand, a staff in the other. Kind of like battle mages. Here is him kind of looking very downtrodden and everything. I'm assuming he's very old based on this. And his robes are looking very disheveled, almost like they're turning into rags. So next we have Katon the Wanderer. So Katon the Wanderer is one of 2 NPCs in a quest where we have to figure out who is right. So Katon seems to be a nice guy. He's nice to us anyway. But we find him locked in a cell in the woods, and it is very, very bad, especially considering what they do to undead there. So we free him from the cell, and Katon swears bloody vengeance upon the man who imprisoned him. So yeah, really cool character. It is a shame though that, actually I won't go into any spoilers, we'll get there when we get there. This is some more artwork for him. This is his axe that he uses, but personally I think this design here is really cool. And I like his helmet with the mouth and head guard, but still showing his eyes and his hair. I think it's a very cool design. So next up we have the Titchy Gwen, which is this old woman here. Really, really cool. Not exactly sure what it is she does, but she does have some cool weapons. She has this scythe. She has this almost like massive, I don't know what this is even called, like a massive sickle type weapon. And I'm assuming this is something for casting. Then next we have the Stone Trader Chlone. So we find her at the very start of the Ethan Peak area. She's looking for something. And we can eventually find her and give her what she needs. And then once we give her what she needs, she will head back to Majula with us. Or not with us, she'll just head back on her own. And she will sell us different types of rare crafting materials and types of metals and stuff like that. Really cool. Also, her design is really cool. It's obvious that she's not a warrior at all, or even anyone who's experienced in combat in the slightest. She's just like a normal girl who got stuck up in these current events, which is unfortunate. Here we have a couple of characters. So here is Smith Gilligan. So Smith Gilligan is the worst NPC in the entire From Software series and is the most useless. All he does is make one ladder for you to get you out of a window, off of a rooftop, which is maybe like a 5-foot drop. You can also ask him to build you a ladder down into the pit in Majula, in which he creates a ladder that is maybe like 3 feet down, and then you still fall down. So he is absolutely useless. I despise this man. And then in Dark Souls 3, in the Profane Capital, we actually find his dead body. So yeah, I guess Yoram the Giant was not happy with his laddering skills, but you know, at least I'm not the only one. The other character here is Vanggirl of Vanafir, and she appears to be some kind of, I don't know what the right term is. So moving on, we have the head of Vanggirl. So Vanggirl was essentially a really brutal warlord and reigned with an iron fist with his men for a very long time, until, however, he was defeated and his head was not killed, it was just cut off and essentially put on a rock to stare into the wilderness forever. Because remember, people can't actually die, or at least hollows can't actually die. So, and during this, he has become much more of an introspective man and has seemingly changed his ways. However, he is just a head, and he kind of wants a new body, but at the same time he doesn't, because he doesn't want to go back to his old ways, which is both interesting and also sad at the same time. So this is Vanggirl's body here. As you can see, he has fur all over him, red, lacquered armor, 2 massive swords. And then over here, we have the man-scorpion Tark. So we mentioned earlier that there was a female scorpion who is a boss who had a husband. And this is Tark here. So I mentioned that you could summon her boyfriend in to help you in the fight, and this is him. So he is another man scorpion, but is honestly a very nice guy. Not like super polite, but is pretty chill, and is more than happy to talk to you. He's actually surprised that you're able to understand him, because most people can't. But he's like, yeah, my wife needs to be stopped. Let's go and stop her. And they do this. I believe canonically he actually dies during the fight. Even if he doesn't die as a summon, I think in the canon, either way, he does die. So like if you win the fight and he disappears, or like he returns to his world, and then you rest at a bonfire and you go back, I'm pretty sure he's dead, but maybe I'm wrong. So here we have Dark Driver Gandalf. So this man is an integral NPC to getting the Dark Lurker boss fight. So this man is hidden throughout the entire game. I think it's about in 4 or 5 different locations. I can't remember the exact number. And we have to find and kill him each time. And then once we do that, then we get access to the Dark Lurker fight. The Dark Lurker fight is optional, but is definitely one of the coolest fights in the FromSoft games, and especially in Dark Souls 2. Here's some pictures of his chair and just of him kind of from the back. This is what his legs look like. But extremely old man. You would not think that he's like in communion with essentially an eldritch demon. Here we have Chancellor Welliger, who is this man here, and then Nashandra Loth Dranglake. So this is, I'm assuming this is Nashandra. So this is the wife of the king. In her human form, at least. We know that she what she really is, but this is how she appears to everyone else, just as a normal human, and a very good-looking woman at that. So that's why she's able to convince people to, you know, go to war against a race and a country that has done nothing to you. So yeah, she's very, very evil. So next we have Milfanato. She is a healer. I'm not sure if she is a cleric or a healer in terms of medicine or a healer in terms of miracles, but nonetheless she is a very skilled healer. Here is Grave Robber Agadine, and and then here is Grave Robber Agdane. So he is in the Undead Crypt, and his job is essentially, it's not really his job, but it's just essentially what he does, is that he makes sure that the people in the crypt that are the dead are left alone and undisturbed. So it's very cool. He looks very evil in this picture, like he looks like a stereotypical bad guy, but he's doing something very noble and very selfless. So he's a really cool character. You barely see him. He's not the most friendly type. It's like, if you try and talk to him, he'll essentially just blow you off. But he does seem to have a heart of gold for what he is doing, kind of keeping the dead safe from looters and stuff, especially in times like this. So this guy here is Royal Sorcerer Navan. So he acts as an advisor to King Vendrick. He is a very powerful sorcerer, and he has, I believe he is the one responsible for creating a lot of the illusions that appear in Drangleic Castle, just to kind of scare off any intruders. So he is definitely dedicated to both Drangleic and the king, which is pretty cool. I'm surprised that, no one would try and overthrow the king or kind of usurp him based on the king being absent and a hollow, but Navan seems to have good intentions. Over here we have Captain Drummond. So I believe, I can't remember for sure, I believe that Captain Drummond fought in the the Drangleic war against the giants when the giants invaded Drangleic. Here are some pictures of him some more in his battle armor. So we have his red cape, we have his full plate mail and sword. This is him from the back, his shield. This is the kind of helmet that he wears, which is really cool. It has like a little bird's beak on it, and his long sword. I think he looks really cool here. And it just goes to show that, despite fighting literal giants that could, rip you in half with like a slight flick of their pinky, he's still willing to go out and fight for his homeland. So he is very, very brave. The next section is weapons and other design illustrations. However, everyone, that is going to be it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. Your viewership, as always, means the world to me. I apologize if this video ended up being a little bit longer. I just wanted to cover all of, or at least most of the characters. So before we go any further, I want to give a huge shout out to my 2 Patreon members. So thank you Slice of Life for Life, and thank you Mary the Otaku. I am beyond grateful. If you would like to support the channel on Patreon, I will leave a link in the description, but you absolutely do not have to. There will only ever be a €1 a month tier. There will not be anything higher than that. I don't want anyone's money. I just want you guys to enjoy the content. So if you are listening to this video while trying to go to sleep or trying to relax, now is the time to turn the video off in case an ad wakes you up. So thank you so much again for watching. My name has been Crimson, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good night or a good evening. Peace.